if Deku was the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails? Part 1. Now, I'm sorry this video is only going to be 15 minutes long, as I want all of you guys to go down in the comment section below and tell me if I did anything wrong, as I did spend a couple hours researching the Ten Tails, so I'm still probably going to get a lot of things wrong. And make sure you guys go subscribe to Lord Duck, link in the description. I believe we're almost at 225 subscribers, so go ahead and try and get that, or else he will delete your Minecraft server. You don't want that to happen. Now, getting into this what if. Izuku is born to two people in the Naruto universe, to where they end up having to seal the Ten Tails beast inside of Izuku. Now, it's basically like Naruto was, it's basically like how Naruto was born. He was born, then they had to seal Kurama inside of him, basically. So these people had to seal the Ten Tails inside of Izuku. And in order for them to basically just secure that they will never have to deal with the Ten Tails again, they end up throwing him through a portal to where he ends up crashing into a forest. Yes, he's a child, and yet they still threw him into a forest after sealing the Ten Tails beast inside of him, making him the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails. Izuku would later be found by a pregnant woman, being Mitsuki Bakugo, not Inko Midoriya. As I know a lot of you guys said on the poll that you just wanted to see Izuku being Bakugo's brother, so here it is. Now, Izuku would then end up becoming Bakugo's brother, basically, as Bakugo would be born pretty much the next day, as Izuku and Bakugo would grow up together up until their 4th birthday, to where Izuku and Bakugo would go to the quirk doctor, as he would then say that Bakugo has a strong explosion quirk, while Izuku is quirkless. As Izuku just is like, what? How can I be quirkless? As the doctor says, it was strange, really. We found remnants of some other type of power in you, but we've come up with nothing of it. Must just be remnants of your parents' quirk. It just didn't fully develop, so you're quirkless. You may have some small quirk like that, but it would basically render useless. As Izuku would run out of the hospital crying as he'd run into the forest. He would keep on running until he smashed his head against a tree branch, as he'd go unconscious. This is inevitably where he would end up meeting the Ten Tails, which I know the Ten Tails basically is emotionless. At least that's what I read about. I'm just making him be able to talk. I'm not sure if he can talk or not, because I'm an idiot, but yeah. So Izuku would end up meeting the Ten Tails, as the Ten Tails would then explain how Izuku's from another universe, and how he is the child of basically the two strongest bloodlines in the universe they are from. As Izuku would basically just say, alright, as the Ten Tails would then explain how if Izuku wants to become strong, he's going to have to basically train his heart out so he can end up controlling him. So Izuku would then basically just agree to be trained by the Ten Tails, as Izuku would then spend the next 10 years training with the Ten Tails, basically every day after school and before school. He would train his chakra, basically just trying to build up like strength and stamina with it. He'd also try and train attacks. Since I believe he has all releases, he'd be able to do Rasengan Chidori, I believe, not quite sure. As Izuku wouldn't be bullied by Bakugo, as Bakugo, now seeing Izuku as a brother, would try to encourage Izuku, but would seem he really doesn't have to, as Izuku still says he's going to be a hero and that he has some type of power. Now, when Izuku was 7, he actually got the balls to show Bakugo his power, as Izuku would basically just create like a little ball of wind, like a tiny version of the Rasengan, basically, as Izuku would just spin it around in his hand as Bakugo would say, "Whoa, Izuku, I didn't know you had powers." Izuku said, "Yeah, it's strange. The doctor said I'm quirkless, and apparently I'm not even from this universe." Bakugo just starts laughing, saying that Izuku's become crazy, as Izuku just says that his powers are called chakra, and that everyone from the universe he came from had it, and he has a very strong type of power. As Bakugo would just say, "Alright, sure, I guess." As Izuku would then keep up his training, Bakugo also somewhat training, as the day finally comes when they're 14, as they are in their classroom, as they hear the teacher start to talk, as the teacher starts saying how he knows everyone in the school wants to become heroes, as he then reads off two names, Bakugo and Izuku, as they want to go to UA. Now, people don't laugh at Izuku as he actually showed them his powers after they started laughing at him for being quirkless, and he showed them their powers, so now they know he's extremely strong, just like Bakugo. Now, Izuku would basically just say, "Yup, I want to go to UA just like my brother," as they basically both high five. I don't know. As they'd end up walking back home, Izuku having to go get groceries. Now, from here, he would end up sensing basically the sludge villain, as Izuku would dodge the sludge villain and basically just make a Chidori and just smash it into the sludge villain, basically making it explode, as he hears All Might come out of the tunnel, as he'd say, "Thanks, young man, for helping me defeat this sludge villain." As All Might would then jump away after putting the sludge villain into a bottle. From there, Izuku would start to walk back to his house until he hears an explosion. He starts to run there, only to see his brother, as he thinks, "No, brother, what can I do? If I try to use a Chidori, I might hurt him." Oh, this really is a tough decision. Sorry, that ad was unannounced, I forgot to say. And now a quick ad break. As we cut to Izuku feeling an intense emotional attachment towards Bakugo, as he thinks, "No, he's my brother, I can't let him die." As Izuku rushes in there, as his Sharingan awakens. I had to search that up, by the way, that's why I kind of stopped it, and that's why the ad was unannounced. As Izuku's Sharingan would awaken, as Izuku would run right at the sludge villain, as Izuku would dodge all of the sludge villain's attacks, as Izuku would grab inside of the sludge villain and pull Bakugo out, as Izuku would then make both a Chidori and a Rasengan and slam it into the sludge villain, making it explode. After that, Izuku's eyes would start bleeding as he thinks, "What the hell was that?" As he'd hear a voice say, "That was your Sharingan, kid. Can't believe you haven't awakened it yet. You're my Jinchuriki, after all." As Izuku would then basically just be yelled at for running at the sludge villain and how dangerous it was. As Izuku would just tell them to shut up and they did nothing, as he'd walk back home with his brother Bakugo, with Bakugo thanking Izuku. But when they're walking back, they end up getting stopped by a very skeleton-looking person. Izuku asked who it is, as this person would then end up poofing into All Might, as he'd say, "You, with the black hair," which is Izuku. I'm changing his hair color to black. As Izuku would then say, "What? All Might, what? I've chosen you to be my next successor for my quirk." As Izuku says, "What? I'm flattered, but I don't think I need your power After all, I still have the potential to become much more powerful than you, even without it. As All Might would say, what? So, what do you suggest I do then? As Izuku would then point at Bakugo and say, well, he's my brother after all, and we both have the same drive to protect people and become heroes, so why don't you give it to him? As All Might would say, what a fine choice, young. As Izuku would say, Bakugo. As Izuku and Bakugo would then end up introducing themselves to All Might, as from there, All Might would just tell Bakugo to go to the beach and that over the next 10 months they're going to train so Bakugo can basically try to basically just try and use his quirk to a better extent. As those 10 months would end up passing, as Isuku and Bakugo would end up going to the entrance exam. Now, if you're wondering how much percentage Bakugo could use of One For All, I would probably say 15%. Now, Isuku, the reason why he could only use 5% at the start of the series when he got it was because he didn't train at all for all his life. Bakugo, on the other hand, trained, and you could see he had a study strength even in the later seasons of My Hero Academia, so I'm just saying Bakugo can handle 15% of One For All. Now, once they get there, they're split up into two different sections. Bakugo is a group that's going to be doing the practical exam first, while Izuku will be doing a written exam first. Izuku would then end up going there as he'd easily pass the written exam, as he would then have to go to an auditorium to where they would explain the practical exam for them. As Izuku would walk into the auditorium after being explained, as they would then go out to see a massive door. As Izuku thinks so, probably release us or something. As Izuku gets into a stance to run, as he then sees the doors open, as he basically immediately zooms off as he starts to fly. As that's something I read too, I'm not quite sure if that's true or not. Please correct me in the comments if I'm ever wrong about anything. Much appreciated. As Izuku would fly off, as he'd basically just start to punch random things. As he would punch random things, basically thinking that they're not just gonna have a bunch of random, small robots, and he also heard that the zero pointer was there, so it might be insanely massive or very strong. So he wants to try and save his chakra for that and not basically just lose all of his stamina. So he'd fly around basically just smashing robots up until he'd have just around 200 points. From there, he would just sit up on a rooftop watching all of the contestants basically just start doing things and just destroying everything, as Izuku would then start to hear somebody screaming for help as the ground starts to shake. He looks up to see a massive robot looking down on the buildings as he then sees a girl about to get crushed. Izuku would drop down as his lower jaw would unhinge as he'd start to power up a tailed beast ball or whatever. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. Remember, I just read a bunch of things because I like to read sometimes about this stuff. As Izuku would then send a massive beam of this tailed beast ball, and it would end up just cutting the zero pointer clean in half. As the girl would just look up in shock, along with every other student, along with the teachers, as Izuku would run to the girl, pick her up, and then fly back as the zero pointer would slowly start to fall into pieces. As Izuku would then ask the girl, being Uraraka, as he'd ask her if she's alright. She would say yes, and thank you for saving me, and how the hell can you be so strong? I wonder what your quirk must be. As Izuku then just says he trained a lot, as Izuku would then go back home, walking back with Bakugo, as they both talk to each other about how they did on the exam. Bakugo said he did pretty well, but he did end up hearing the ground start to shake in like a massive roar type thing, as Izuku just says, "Oh yeah, that must have been me." And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. I'm sorry this video is short. Remember, I don't want to get anything wrong, and if I did get anything wrong, please tell me down in the comment section below. Tomorrow will be a 30-minute video for you guys, so I thank you all for watching. Once again, make sure you guys go subscribe to Lord Duck, or he will delete your Minecraft world. Thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.